Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Robinson. It's such a treat to connect with you.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be on with you, Whitney. I really appreciate it. Or
Thank
I
you.
should
Well,
say, Chef Whitney.
thank you. Well, before I pressed record, you asked me what I wanted to talk about with you today, and there are so many things. One of them was talking about how we can heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually so we can live a better life, right? So we can pursue our dreams, as well as one of the things I mentioned to you is how we can get more clear on our purpose again so we can live our best life. So you started giving me some great tips on things that we can do every day to heal ourselves, and I want you to just keep going. I
Okay,
interrupted you.
that's okay.
So
Um, for those watching today's precasted or casted material that Whitney is interviewing me with, my book is called There Are No Lines in Heaven, and it's about my near death experiences, alternative medicine, and spiritual healing. And what I was sharing earlier before we began the actual interview was, what do you do to help somebody realize their best potential? Well, almost everybody, I'd say 95% of my patient load comes in with one major complaint that can either make it or break it when it comes to healing. Number one, they've been disconnected to nature, so they got to get back to nature. Number two, they come in with a sense of fear at some level, mild, moderate, or severe. And it is the triggering mechanism by which they became ill in the first place. And one of those things that will make you calm down and stop the fear is to go out in nature, whether it would be the ocean or the mountains or the trees in the forest, and do some form of meditation. Now, my form of meditation is called Einstein, or tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. And near the conclusion of this episode, we will discuss how to do that. But in the meantime, I have means and ways to shut off fear, false evidence that appears real, within 20 seconds. And Whitney, you would ask me what to do about that. The number, it is a verbal frequency which triggers a mechanism in the brain to go to the heart and from the heart back to the brain to shut off adrenaline and all its byproducts, is 8732 9667 488. And if you'll say it with me, 8732 9667
8796.
488. I'm going to do it one more time. You repeat right after I say it. 8732 9667 488. And if you say that frequency, that verbal frequency, it will shut off fear within 20 seconds. I always recommend that my patients and clients use that number right before they go to bed, so there is no adrenal reaction or injection of adrenaline from the body right before they go to sleep. A lot of people say, well, I'm laying down, and just as I was about to lay down, all of a sudden I got this surge and this jolt, and now I can't go to sleep. And that's because their adrenal glands are kicking in, and from all the activity that they had in the day, and they needed to calm the mind, calm the body, and shut off the adrenaline responses. When you
And
do, yes,
do we
you're
need
going
to
to say?
say it 15 times?
I say it 15 times.
Okay. Is there a reason for that number?
Yes. One of my teacher trainers was a man named Lloyd Muir, and he wrote a book called Balancing by Numbers. How my book got written was because Lloyd's editor became my editor. And in doing so, I would tell, her name is Christine Diney, she's in Orlando, how to use some of the numbers that Lloyd doesn't talk about. As a matter of fact, I had about 30 numbers that were given to me personally for myself and my mom by Lloyd many years before he passed away and many years before Christine got to know him. And they needed to be included in the book. Her book is really a big book. And
I
she
have a
has a whole
copy of
book.
it.
You've seen it?
Oh,
Okay.
I have it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know. But if you don't know how to use the book and the frequencies, they're of no use. I mean, you got a
Yes.
piece of equipment and the technology, but it's useless if you don't know how to utilize it. When I started working with Lloyd many years ago, he said, normally I make people say these numbers 7 times, but because of your near death experience, we noticed that you don't respond quite the same way the average person does. And I had to say it twice. And I found that a lot of the people I work with not only are near death experience people also, but they had some kind of chronic or serious illness that makes them be required or they're required to do those numbers much more than the average person as well. The chronicity of their challenge makes it more difficult for their numbers to seed and be useful. Now, Lloyd told me that in order to get the numbers to work, what he actually tested for, he did divination and he tested, is he would find out what the diagnosis was. In this case, fear. False evidence appears real. And he would find out what the number was by testing, and he'd come up each number in the sequence until he was done, and there was no more numbers. Then he would flip them around. And by reversing them, it caused it to neutralize or eliminate. So one of the biggest things with every patient I come in contact with is they come in some level of fear. Now, I work with the Bruno Gruning Circle of Friends. And Bruno, the MWF, or the Medical Scientific Group, Medical Wirtschaftsfreunde, in Germany, has his old recordings for Bruno when he was alive. He was a healer that never claimed to be a healer. He was a gift from God that could teach people how to connect to God. And one of the things that he actually taught was humans have a poison in them that gets released on a regular basis. That poison is adrenaline. And if they can cut that adrenaline poison off, because it's an irritant, then they can actually help themselves heal. And they have to do that by this technique called Einstellen, which we'll talk about at the end because I like to focus on that by itself. But there are other people along the way of my path since my near-death experiences that taught me to remain calm. And one of them was Lloyd's number for fear. The other one is forgiveness of self and others. And it's in Lloyd's book. 116-979-458. Real simple. 116-979-458. And every one of my patients goes through that as well. Because the other obstacle to healing and living a better life is forgiveness. And the angels told me not just to forgive somebody else that caused you a problem, they cut you off while you were driving, they said something bad, they weren't feeling good, they got nasty with you. It is to remember for you to forgive yourself. The angels would talk to me all the time, said the biggest problem is you humans forget to forgive yourself. You're willing to forgive other people, but you forget to forgive yourself. You made a mistake. The second problem after you make a mistake is you then beat yourself up. And the angels and God have told me, and Bruno too, is that you have to forgive yourself. Now, the third thing, in order to live a better life in those frequencies for numbers, is a number that deals with shock. Now, I don't have it in front of me. It's in my little phone, so I have to open it up. But there is a frequency that deals with shock. Now, German New Medicine, Dr. Hammer, discussed that the main contributing factor to any illness was the response of shock, which is a major issue dealing with fear. Somebody, you heard the news, bad news, somebody was in an accident, somebody was sick, somebody had a stroke. I experienced that with my brother, who was a dentist. He's my spiritual brother. Dr. Stephen Lawrence. I had never experienced that before. And I was like, gee, I had a really hard time letting go of the shock. But shock can cause major issues. Now, besides a verbal frequency for getting rid of shock, and I will send that to you when we're done, and then you can post that on this podcast later, is one of the most important things is something called the Star of Bethlehem. It is a Bach flower remedy, and 2/3 of my clients use that. Usually it's shock and grief and overwhelm because it covers all those three things, but I have never found a Bach flower remedy that worked so well. Now, as you have my book, so you know, There Are No Lines in Heaven. It's a rather big book. And it's big and it's heavy. And if you ever threw that at somebody, you'd really give them a shock. You'd hurt them. It's 3 pounds. So
Yeah.
it was made with large print so people over the age of 40, or we'll say 39, could read that book without having to wear their glasses. One of the most important things in living a better life is always going back to nature. Go walk by the beach. Go smell the trees in the forest. If people understood why the planet is the way it is and why it's such a mess, they can now go back to understand why they're having such a hard time breathing in our reality. I don't mean because of they can't breathe with smells, breathing because they're so anxious. Number one, lack of energy. Humans have forgotten how to connect to God. And so what I teach my patients is how to connect to God. Nature, meditation, Einstein, tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. The
Asking
second,
for reignites you pretty quickly just by staring at you or hands-on healing. But in order to get long-term healing from something chronically, you have to do it yourself. I thought that was very interesting.
you must take responsibility for yourself. God gives you this body. It's a gift from God. When it's done, it goes back to God. And your soul goes back to the sea of souls, and you're part of the one. In order to master this reality, we are a spirit in a physical body undergoing a tremendous test on a planet designed as big school. It's university level in the spiritual world. And what most people don't understand is once you realize what this planet is, and you understand that each of us has a mission and purpose in life, then you must seek out your mission and purpose. How do you do that? You ask. That means you have to connect to God. If you don't connect to God, you can't, unless you're born with that knowingness, which some people are, or you go through a near-death experience like me, or two, then you begin to know what that is. First of all, this schooling planet created by God, Mother Earth, actually known as Urantia, the planet of light or enlightenment, volunteered, she's a living being, to host souls, children of God. But beforehand, God put all of the evil in the universe on this planet. Within each super universe, there is one planet, us, in this case, that will have all of the evil placed upon it. The evil will be given this planet as its dominion. Then, the most courageous children of God will volunteer to come down here to learn to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it, whatever it is. This entire planet is a big test. It's the university of all tests for the children of God. In order to get here, you've already had to come from somewhere else, and you really had to volunteer. There are literally billions of souls waiting to come on this planet, which at the moment is so messed up with hatred, war, pollution, you name it. One of the biggest things, because you asked what can a person do? One of the biggest things that will cause you to reincarnate is hatred. Hatred is a no-no. It is the worst of all things. It opens the door for evil to control and manipulate you, and you will come back as the thing you hate. I had a client, black man. I was like, why is he coming to me? It's because my grandmother was a black lady. You read in there that I had a black patient who adopted me because we recognized each other, and her family were black Jews in the South. Well, she referred me to this man, and he hated everything, but he hated Jews even worse. Didn't know why he hated Jews. He just hated Jews. And I'm saying, you're coming to me, a Jewish doctor who met Jesus? And he said, I don't know why. I don't know what this is about. I don't know what the hate is. Well, he went and he found through the early tests genetically that he was 25% Jewish. And he went from hating Jews to becoming an Orthodox Jew.
Oh, fascinating.
And then he realized his heritage. I think it was he was fighting with himself. He didn't realize he was fighting with himself, but his soul knew that he had a different path. He is so religious. He's ultra Orthodox. So be aware. In this case, he's living his life by becoming the thing he hated. Now he no longer hates Jews because he is Jewish. I think Hitler hated Jews because he found out that he was 50% Jewish. And he was resentful of his father, who never took responsibility for when with his mother of his birth. His father abandoned him and denied him part of the family.
Fascinating.
People sometimes hate the thing or are resentful for the thing. The resentment is a lesser level of hatred, but you should never resent anybody. Resentment can cause cancer and other illnesses. Hatred is literally probably one of the worst things. It is another form of bitterness as well, which can cause illness and can cause people to harm one another. Look what's going on between Ukraine and Russia, what's going on between Israel and Palestine. There's going to be a lot of Palestinians who are going to come back as Jews, and there's going to be a lot of Israelis that are coming back as Palestinians. And this is going to be a perpetual thing until they stop it. And you only can do that when you recognize it. So how can you make your life better? Like the opening question was for me. You can stop doing the bad habits that cause people to reincarnate for the wrong reasons. You can come back not because karmically you have to, but because you choose to out of love. Big difference. You don't have to do anything. Evil knows they don't have to do anything. They can harm every human, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to apologize. They're going to come back on this planet as fellow humans because they own and operate this planet. They know it. But we, those souls that did not come in to work for evil, came in to work for good and become closer to God, have a few things that they need to do. Get closer to nature. Nature is God. God is nature. Do your some form of meditation. In my case, Einstein, tuning into the source, asking for help and healing, and all of the other things that we need to do, but you must come from love. This is not easy because not everybody makes it easy. Sometimes they make it more difficult. If you realized that before you come down here, you've not only had a built-in predilection to be having your death experience to teach you something, but if your best friend in heaven volunteers to give you the worst time here and make it hell on earth, he doesn't or she doesn't remember that, but they volunteered to give you a hard time and you volunteered to forgive him. So you must do it to make your life more joyful, not happy. Happy is a earthly trait, but joy is a true divine trait. And since you want a divine trait, then you have to forgive. Many illnesses will resolve simply by forgiving one another. You'll forgive yourself, you'll forgive other people, and it'll make a difference. And then evil can't grasp a hold of you with its claws or hooks and make you do something like a puppet on a string. They can't manipulate you. You stop. You want to bring more joy into your life? You want to be happy? You want to be healthy? Realize that you're on a planet of evil, and your job is to master this reality by enduring, persevering, and overcoming. Now, the other side has told me we can't stop everything bad from happening to you. But if it does, then this is what you got to do. And for those that do TM, they do TM. Go out into
Mhm.
the nature, pray. Praying is a major thing that helps you calm down. When you calm down, everything is much better. The so-called masters of the Far East, which I discuss in the book, these are monks and masters who claim to be 500 and 600 years old. Well, how did they do that? They remain calm. They don't eat a lot. They don't sleep a lot. They are divinely connected to the presence of this reality, to our heavenly home. They don't get caught up in the games of life, and they don't play it. Florence Scovel Shinn talks about that. It's one of the books I first read. And she wrote this book in 100 years ago, 1923. First woman that was really big into spiritual healing. And then it started a whole cascade of women teaching people that they can help themselves by staying calm. And they'll learn how to play the game of life. So you have a lot of things. And in my book, as you began to read, especially chapter 5, it's all about all the different things of all these options you can have. I don't tell you what to do. I'll muscle test you, or I'll ask God, which is the best one for this person. And
Yeah.
we'll go on. Now, sometimes if it's not in the book, I will add it to the book later as I investigate it. I never recommend anything to a patient unless I personally have actually investigated it. Now, I spent a fortune, over $300,000, and ended up going bankrupt because I spent my own money to test all these things, that 90% of them were a waste of time, waste of money, waste of energy. And the first and foremost thing is you must reconnect to God, whether it's through nature, meditation, Einstein, pushing faint matter out. That's another thing. Humans used to know how to do that. In the book, it's Robert Harry Hoover's Internal Moving Healing. Robert was also one of my teachers. I was one of his last students before he passed away. Only his daughter knew how to do it better than I did. And he told me, boy, you got a lot of stuff. And
So
he
it's called
said,
faint matter?
faint matter. Yeah, a dark energy, faint matter. He said, when you
Got
carry burdens from lifetime to lifetime, you got to stop, number one. Number two, you got to push it out of you. And so I had a really hard time pushing this garbage out of me, this evil, negative, dark garbage. And you do that by closing your eyes and going into the area of your body that hurts or has a problem or is a
Yeah.
difficulty. And you go in and you go from that perspective. And the funny thing was, when he started to teach me this, it's a Buddhist technique from the country of Myanmar, what used to be called Burma.
Hmm.
He had hurt himself in 1961. He was an engineer that worked for eventually NASA, North American Rockwell, and he was successful in redoing Apollo 1 and remaking it into what we knew later as Apollo 8. So he was on that team. But he had fallen down and broke his leg when he was there and learned that the priests and the monks and the nuns all knew this ancient technique. It's just white folks and people from the West didn't, at least from their perspective.
Yeah.
So he learned this technique and healed himself. His leg healed completely without the intervention of any other medicine or doctor. He learned the technique so successfully that they actually gave him like a franchise. And then he Americanized this ancient technique that you learn about in the Healing Masters of the Far East by Baird Spalding, which is also over 100 years old, the book. And he taught it. And he changed the words to faint matter, because it was this faint matter that you couldn't really grab it, but you had to go inside internally and push it out of your body. And when I began to finally master it, I realized not only could I do it for myself, I could do it for other people. And the first person I did this for was my mom. I actually began to see things around people. And in my mom's case, I write about it in the book, I saw this thing floating that looked like a fish with no skin or scales. It was like a bone and it ribbon type of thing, and it
Mhm.
had a head, and it hit my mother in the head, and immediately she said, "Ow, I got a headache." And I said, "Mom, I just saw what hit you, the spiritual thing," and I yanked it out of her. I cut it away, and I threw it so that it couldn't touch her or me ever again. Got it out of the house, got it out of everything, and her headache went away. And then I began to realize it was easier for me to work on other people than it was for me to work on myself. And that
Yes.
was because Robert had told me I was the second most filled with dark faint matter person that he'd ever worked with. He only had one other woman that he'd worked with that was so severely contaminated from negative energy, and she nearly tried to commit suicide. But she didn't because she learned how to do it too. But he said, it's really funny. You are able to do this for other people better than yourself, because I began to realize I was picking up the dark faint matter, not just from myself, I was picking it up from other people.
Yeah, you were working as the sponge.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that. When you have a near death experience, and sometimes you come back without an auric field or without parts of your auric field intact, mine were damaged due to radiation and other things, and I had to have that heal. Like the ozone layer can heal if you let it heal. So took out the negative energy, the chemicals, and the exposure that I had, and I began to heal. Oh, and then it was easier for me to push this faint matter out. But I also then found out it was easier to push it out of you or some other person, and they didn't even have to be anywhere near me to do it. I actually have a lot of clients in Florida that I am able to do this remotely, and I don't actually have to see them. I can talk to them and ask them questions. I go into their body remotely and push the garbage out of their system. And they have helps and healings. I don't need any other equipment. I don't need anything but my gift and ability to get stronger by pushing out the energy that's negative out of me and not taking on anybody else's energy from them. So I learned that I had to be better prepared and be better protected, because one of my gifts is to pick up what's wrong with somebody else. And I didn't know it was because I had a hole in my auric field that I was actually picking up their auric field and drawing it into my auric field, and then knowing what exactly was wrong with them. And I also knew not to hold on to it. I wear gold. That's important. I have
I've heard that
Laram.
a lot. That gold is very protective.
It repels negative energy. I also have silver, but gold is much better at doing that. It is God's gift on this planet to be used for that purpose.
Is there a quality of gold that we should be looking for, or any
It,
gold will work?
um, 18 is okay, but it's not the best. But 21 or 28 karat gold, 22, 24 karat gold is the best. It's the most expensive because it's the most pure. And you take the impurities out, and the gold is better. Of course, gold today is very expensive. So if you can just get a gold coin, I happen to wear one on my
Mhm.
neck. So just enough to make sure that it repels negative energy. Then Larimar, um, Edgar Casey talks about it, how it repels karma. But people have to understand that there really is no karma to begin with.
Yeah,
There's
let's
just,
talk about that.
if you see, evil knows about it, but everybody else has been dumbed down and believe that they have to have karma and they have to suffer. They don't have to do either of those things. They may have to struggle, like a butterfly struggles to push itself out of its cocoon, but they don't have to suffer. One of the things that Hindus used to teach, not all, certain teachers did, is that you have to suffer. No, you don't have to suffer. You do have to struggle. It's part of being here so that you can become the butterfly spiritually. Um, but the other thing, and you don't need Red Bull because you don't need wings that way. You just need to be able to have the strength to push those things away.
So do we need to be shielding ourselves every day before we walk out of the house, or working
Yes.
on strengthening our work field?
I use dragon's blood to get the negative energy away. If you can get dragon's blood,
What is
comes from
it?
the dragon tree, which is where you
Okay.
get dragon fruit, and you can get it in a
Ah,
stick or liquid variant. I have it in various different kinds. I have it on me all the time, dragon's blood. That's a good cleansing tool for your office, for your car, for your home. I have sticks of it. It's made by Ganache. It's one of the companies I like from because it comes out of Chicago. Some of it comes out of Arizona, New Mexico. That's where they grow a lot of the dragon trees. So they get the resin and the sap to make it. It's very cleansing. The Catholic Church actually uses it a lot. If you see them throwing this thing back and forth in some of the big old churches in Europe and all the smoke coming out,
Yes.
that came from when they came into Mexico, Central and South America, and they use that resin to clean the church of negative energy. That's why
Wow.
sometimes Catholic Church people actually felt better because they were cleansed of their negative energy.
Amazing. Do you
The,
think it's more powerful than sage and Palo Santo, or is
oh
it all
yes,
kind of the same thing?
way
No,
better, 10
way
times
better?
better. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you also asked about other things. Doubt. One of the biggest things that humans have besides fear and unforgiveness is doubt. They doubt themselves. You must have faith in God, trust in a being higher than yourself to help reconnect you to God, whether it's Jesus, I call him Big Brother, or Bruno Gruning, or whoever your master teacher is that helps you connect to God. And you must believe in yourself. As a child of God, you are worthy. If you're on this planet, you are worthy. There is no such thing as a non worthy child of God unless you are working directly for evil. And that's only a small percentage of the population. 10% of the population works for God and they know it. 10% of the population works for evil and they know it. And everybody else in between doesn't know a thing. They're walking around chaos, confusion, and fog. So these are just little simple things. You said your goal was how could people take something away from this and make their lives better and more joyful? And that is to get rid of doubt. You are a worthy child of God, have no doubt, and therefore believe in yourself what your mission and purpose is in life. And then people say, what's my mission and purpose in life? Well, use one of these techniques, connect to God, and then ask. And I teach people simple techniques to ask simple yes and no questions that will train you to come from your heart and to ask the divine in you, the divinity, what it is you need to know about who and what you really are and why you're really here. Do you know? Part of your gift is helping people wake up by introducing them to people like myself and others who have unique gifts from our near death experiences, alternative medicine, spiritual healing, or we call you Chef Whitney because you're a chef and you use the power of food in healing. And you got to that chapter. There's many, many techniques for healing through food. What can make your life better? Food. What kind of food? Organic food, raw food. Now, some people do better with raw meat, raw chicken, raw fish, raw eggs, raw butter, raw cream. Some people don't. So you have to know your body type and what your body does better. Does it need to be vegan, vegetarian? Is it a meat eating body that requires that it, in order to do better, needs that? You have to find out what you are in the scheme of things and what your body needs. You're not your body. You're not the voice in your head, but you are your soul, which connects through your organs and into you from the sea of soul, from God, the Spirit. And once you begin to learn these things, what your body needs to be successful, then you'll know how to have a more joyous life. Now, one of the biggest things, if you ever noticed, many healers, and I've worked with 37 of them, all of us have a tendency not to eat too much.
Yep. I've noticed that with so many.
Well, one of the main reasons is we're filled with the energy of God. We don't have as much an appetite. But if we're going to eat something, we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to do a prayer over it in some way, shape, and form so that the food is filled with the healing stream, the Holy Spirit, the Heilstrom. That's the German word for healing stream and Holy Spirit, healing wave. And when your food is filled with that, you can actually, once your body is clean, actually enjoy your food. And what they said from the other side is one of the few things you can do on this planet, what you are allowed to do, is enjoy your food. Doesn't mean be a glutton,
Mhm.
but enjoy your food. Now, I have had monks and priests who eat some of the worst food in the world, but because they do a prayer over and they enjoy their food, they don't have any health issues dealing with it. Doesn't matter if they have parasites. Doesn't matter if they eat raw. Doesn't matter if they have chocolate or coffee or any number of things. The other thing, what are things that take away your energy and your divine connection? Tobacco, coffee. All these things rev you up in some way, shape, and form, but they actually keep you disconnected. Now, I'm not talking about natural tobacco, which Native American people use for ceremonies to connect themselves to God. I'm talking about the processed tobacco is not good for you simply because it cuts you off from your divine connection.
Would it be the same for coffee then? Traditional single origin, organically grown,
It's
or is
better if you're
coffee
going to have
coffee?
coffee to have the organic stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But coffee is a stimulant, and any stimulant, wine, any alcohol is going to separate you from your divine connection. Now, people said, well, I heard that Bruno Gruning drank a lot of coffee. And that's because he was so divinely connected, he actually had to cut himself down from that divine connection because he would burned up. So he actually used coffee and cigarettes to keep him mellow. Um,
Keep them grounded.
yeah, because he had such a strong gift, he had to be able to do that. So the man I'm talking about, Bruno Gruning, you can look up www.bruno-gruning.org, was a healer beyond most healers. There's about 6 people on this planet currently who have tremendous healing gifts and are very pure, and I write about them in the book. And then there's others that are about 90%, and we're still human. And we have our faux pas and our mistakes, and we have to be very careful. I'm told be careful. No ego, no greed. You can have a lifestyle and you can live and you can make money, but don't get carried away with it. I did get carried away with it for a while there. I played.
Is there a prayer that you can offer us as a starting point for blessing our food?
It depends if you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Jewish. Take the prayers that are there. I use my Hebrew prayers because I have a Jewish background. And
Hmm.
that is the universal prayer, not over bread, that's one different prayer, but would be Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shachianu v'kimanu v'yanu lazman hazeh. Thank you, God, for bringing us to this day, time, space, and place with these people, whoever they are with, to eat this food. That's my prayer. Now, if you say the one of the bracha over bread, then you got to do another bracha afterwards. So we're not going to take that one. Take whatever prayer comes from your heart. That's the most important thing. Bless it. Now, when you learn to do Einstellen, you're
Hmm.
actually going to ask God to send down the Heilstrom to the food, and you're going to ask Bruno to connect this food to God's Heilstrom. Why? Because the food starts to taste differently. Bruno used to make patients who were ill eat there was a story where he made a man eat a piece of cake. He actually didn't eat a piece of cake, he ate the whole cake. And he actually put the energy of God into the cake. So when the man ate the cake, he received help and healing. This man, once he started to eat the cake, couldn't stop. It was intense. It was so wonderful. And I've been there. We've done Einstein at a potluck and go, oh my goodness, the food it tastes so good. And here we're eating some things that were like normally I wouldn't eat or it would cause me a problem. Didn't cause me any difficulty.
Yeah, the blessing of food, I think, is a miraculous gift that not enough people are aware of or practice.
And that comes to the next one. People are not grateful. Not only do they doubt who they are, their holiness, they doubt their gratefulness. They must be grateful every day, whether it's through prayer or some representation to say thank you to the Creator, who and whatever you call the Creator. I call God the big guy. I call Jesus big brother. I also call God it because there's no way to really explain it. It's neither male nor female. It's both, but it's neither. It's both everything you see and everything you can't see. It's what you feel, and it's more than your understanding and your comprehension. So be grateful. These are just what we were talking about, ways you can have a more joyous life. Do you have to have a near death experience? No. But I discuss all these things in the book and things that doctors even take for granted. You don't have to use standard medicine, use natural medicine. Doesn't have to be alternative, complementary, integrative, or spiritual. Use natural medicine. Natural medicine is actually better for your body than artificial pharmaceuticals. Now, I have to say there are some pharmaceuticals that are very important, and humans, if they're on it, should take it. But I'd have to talk to you about what those are, because some of those things are pretty good. But everything man made, everything created from the mind of humans has a side effect. Everything that comes in from the divine has absolutely no side effect. You can pray and you can do Einstein, and people have had healings where they lose their appetite for smoking, sex, drug addiction, alcohol. It just disappears. No withdrawal symptoms by doing this Einstein. Or you can go the long way, the normal way that people do it. But I found that there's just so many helps and healings that way. Prayer and gratitude make a difference. Well, first of all, the people that don't pray and aren't grateful probably aren't going to be watching this show. I'm not going to be on their top 10 list, and they're not going to be on mine. But hey, let's face it,
No, I appreciate it. I love a sense of humor. I mean, that's part of what makes life fun is
One of the
moments where we
archangels
can laugh.
is known for that, and that's Ariel and Raphael have a tendency to really have a sense of humor. And my dad, when he died, his gift for me was a sense of humor. You really do have to have a sense of humor. And that's another way you can have a more joyous life. Laugh. There's two ways to clear negative energy out of you:
Yeah.
laughter and crying. So it's
Really?
another way to do it. But if you can laugh, if you can make yourself laugh every day, um, it's miraculous. I wrote about it, and I can't think of his name at the moment, but there was a very famous people, Norman Cousins, who laughed his way to healing. Laughter every day. He had cancer, a rare form of it. Laughed himself to life, not to death. He laughed himself to life. And in doing so, he cured himself of that particular diagnosis. And he even wrote a book about it. He's long gone, but his books are still here. Laughter is the best medicine. So this
What
is a,
do,
yes.
oh, sorry. What do patients tend to come to you for? Why are people seeking you out? What are the
Number
ailments that they're
one
suffering with?
reason is they've been written off by the medical community and left for dead. Go home, write your will, make sure your life insurance is there. There's nothing more we can do for you. A third of those patients I work with will have miraculous healings. A third will live much longer than they were told. They're told they had 6 months, they lived 4 or 5 years. The other ones, that third, they're going to go home between 8 and 12 weeks, and God will say, touch not my child, which means I can't do anything to stop them. Okay, so what do they come? That's the main thing. That's my niche of niches. That's what I'm
Yeah.
known for. But what else do they come for? They had many side effects from the vaccine, and they need to help clear those side effects. And they're actually easy to clear. What other things? I see 50% of the women that I see come in with abuse issues, molestation, abuse of some kind, way, or shape, or form. I work with the Hispanic community, South and Central America. The Brazilian community is a large percentage of my patients, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and one big thing for the women that I see is sexual abuse. So, what do they come in for? And it causes all sorts of illnesses and challenges, from lupus, which is directly linked to worthiness issues, to sexual abuse, abuse by a parent, a trusted person, a brother, a cousin, a relative that they trusted that abused them. And that has to be cleared. I had a client that I went in to see. They weren't actually my client, they were another doctor's. I got called in for a consultation. My buddy does the same technique, bioenergetic synchronization technique, and we've been working on each other for 25 years. And he said, I know you have these divine gifts. I can find things, and he normally can help anybody. But he said, these two people, I can't find answers. I don't know why I can't find an answer. So I did my prayers. I looked at them. I saw the faint matter around this one woman. It was around her eye and her head. And I said, you've been abused by 3 men, one more than the other. They forced you to do something. What was it? Because you're holding on to resentment. And she said, yeah, the doctors forced me to take chemotherapy. And she felt resentful. And the doctor that was standing behind me said, all these years you never told me about that? And she said, I didn't think about it. I just buried it. It's an old emotion. Well, you can't hide these emotions from me and other healers because we can see it. I'm empathic. I can feel it. I can actually see it after I call down the prayers. And I can actually pull it out if they want me to, or I can let people clear it out through BEST or some other technique that they use, emotional code or body code. It can be cleared many, many ways. But if you don't know it's there, you can't clear it. Now, I can actually see it there. I can feel it there. And I can even smell it there. And some of the things, I can smell angels in the room. And behind every person is an angel that is near them. Good guys smell like the most beautiful fragrance. It's like lemon blossoms, patchouli, and strawberries stuck together. Every angelic being has a particular fragrance. And every bad guy, bad angel, I refer to them as the Elohim that's discussed. Elohim is another face of God, the angels. But some guys are good and some guys are not so good. And these bad guys stink like an ashtray. And when I smell that around people, I know that evil is doing their darndest to cause harm. So people don't know that evil is on them, in them, or around them. They accidentally took it on and thought that was them. Ego, pain body, whatever. The voice in their head, they were listening to the wrong voice, especially those that are mentally ill or claim to have been mentally ill. In reality, they're filled with evil. Even though the modern medicine doesn't believe that, there's a chemical imbalance. Where'd the chemical imbalance come from? Oh, it's genetic. Well, if you clear out the evil garbage, a lot of times the patients will heal themselves. Not me. I don't take credit for it. I'm not the gift. The gift is what comes through me. I don't take responsibility for that. I may take responsibility for something I screwed up, but I won't take responsibility because the healing comes from God. I'm just a conduit by which that healing comes through. So all these things, if people understand the truth about who they are, why they're here, and what is really going on, they can play the game better, enjoy their life, and have a better quality of life. Now, you can make money. There's nobody said you got to do, I'm early on. The only reason I couldn't do ego or greed stuff, I couldn't make money that way, was because I didn't want to attract negative energy. I can make money now. But if the gift comes through me and God says, no, don't charge that person, I don't charge the person. It's that simple. And those that can pay for those that can't pay. Because sometimes, for some reason, I may have a contract with another being. I'm just there to help them. I don't know that till I meet them, either physically or long distance spiritually, to be able to help them. Can everybody learn to be their own best physician? Sure, if you connect to God. Because God is the greatest physician. And if you're a child of God, then you have the right to heal. Remember, you're a worthy child of God if you're on this planet. And anybody that doesn't believe themselves to be worthy is missing out. And usually it's because they listened to humans, their parents, their teachers, that said, oh, you're not worthy. You're full of crap. You're blah, 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 blah. Stop listening to people and listen to the divine. And God will tell you you're a worthy child of God and you deserve to heal. Now, the only ones that don't are the ones that are connected to the evil. God won't touch them. It's the only time you're ever allowed to hate anything is evil itself, not the people. If evil is manipulating a human, well, you're allowed not to like that and even hate that evil because that's not God. So it is a fine line. When you know that and you're able to play that game better, you're able to do a better job. Now, you come from a wonderful heart. You have wonderful energy. Your auric field outside is just as shiny as it inside. And you can see that. You stand out in the crowd. You do this out of love. You do this because this is important for you. Food is medicine and food is love. And when you pray over it, it's truly divine love. So, have I answered the question, how can a person have more joy in their lives? All right. Are you ready to learn how to do Einstein?
Yes.
All right. First of all, you have to know a little history about Bruno, and I talk about it in the book, Chapter 5, Module 5, Spiritual Healing. I only put in the people that I know are very special and had special gifts. When I died and ended up in the morgue, my mom said there was someone around me that she thought was an intern or a resident that had pushed my body, laying on this metal gurney, into the morgue and into the refrigeration unit, and that had disappeared when she got close. She couldn't understand where'd he go. Years later, when I would introduce her to Bruno Gruning, she said, "Oh my gosh, that's the guy. He was standing over the top of you. He was the one."
Yeah.
And the only thing was, before she died, she did not want me to have that in the book. She was concerned that people would be worried. She didn't say I couldn't tell people, but she didn't want me to write it in the book. But she recognized that Bruno was there. That made the difference. When she recognized Bruno, she suddenly changed. My mom, first of all, believed that she was only an Ashkenazic Jew. Turned out she wasn't. We are Sephardic Jew, Ashkenazic Jew, we're Spanish, we're Muslim, we have Persian blood in us, we have German, Italian, Greek, we were Roman. And lo and behold, my mother's side of the family is an Aronowitz, a Horowitz, and a Simons, the three major branches of Aaron of the Bible. My grandfather, 798 times removed,
Yeah.
was Aaron, priestly class. Only because it came down through my mother's side, I'm not a Kohen, but I carry the genetic trait for it. It has to come down through my father's side, and it doesn't. It can't. My dad was Israelite. My dad's side was Reuben, Robinson, sons of Reuben, and my mom's side was Simons. We were talking about that because your name,
Yes.
Aronoff, which is a derivative of Aaron,
Mm-hmm.
and sons of Aaron, daughters of Aaron, the Aaron family. You too can be related. I'd love to see your genetic tests to see if it somehow has some kind of connection.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
there,
25% Ashkenazi and Jew.
so
Um,
there's a good chance we're connected.
mhm.
Because how many millions of people are related to Aaron of the Bible?
There are not very many people with Aaron in their last name. I've
No.
we've searched far and wide, and there's very few cousins that my dad keeps in contact with our name.
Well, we found out we had so many family members through the Simons family. I was amazed. We have over 6,500 family members. Most of them aren't Jewish anymore. They've long
Mm.
since forgotten their Jewishness, but through genetic traits, they actually found their Jewish background. Like my fairy godmother, Martha. She found her Jewish traits, right? That patient I told you about found his Jewish traits. There's a lot more people that are Jewish, and wait till the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and the Palestinians find out that many of them have Jewish blood in them. Oh my gosh, oy vey. So, one of the biggest things is to find out who you are. Who were you? Who are you? And who are you to become? Well, it all comes down to we're all children of God and we have to play the game. But when we realize who and what we are, we stop playing the old game and we start learning a new one. We're not in the parade. We're not watching the parade. We're watching the people watch the parade as observers and no longer getting involved in the fight between good and evil on this planet. And when you do that, you wake up. Miracles happen. And in reality, miracles don't exist. They're called astonishments. It's just astonishing to watch these miraculous events occur. If you knew the truth, you'd be able to play the game better. So now let's do some Einstein.
Yes.
All right. Open your hands into this posture. It's called an open posture. Feet flat on the floor, hands up. This comes from the Bruner Gruning Circle of Friends, MWF, or Medical Scientific Group. They're all over the world. There are about 6,300 communities around the world in 137 countries. Even in Israel and Palestine, they have them. And if we didn't do Einstein, it would be far worse than if we didn't do it. We do it. What is it? Einstein, word number one, means tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. And what's the source? God. Well, what part of God are we talking about? It's called the Heilstrom, or healing stream, Holy Spirit, healing wave. Although the Bruno friends won't call it the Holy Spirit. I call it that. Third one, Regulungen, spiritual detoxification. What is that? You start to do this technique and you may actually get worse before you get better. It's the good pushing out the bad, and they're button heads, and they're button heads in the area that you're having the problem in. And you go, but I'm doing spiritual healing. How could it be worse? You have to look at it differently. You have to be grateful for it, because the good is pushing out the bad. You have to use your body as a tool, what it was intended for, and say, well, what is that pain about? Or what is that feeling about in my arm or my neck or my back or whatever? And so you have to look inward. That's why you're not looking out for answers. You're looking inward for answers. Your body's the tool you need to use to find out what burdens are you carrying. And now, once you identify them, you can let them go. In my case, I use my medical background to identify them where they're attached to a different organ. And I use my internal moving healing so that I can feel it. Is it on my body, in my body, around my body? So I can push it away and get rid of the cords attached to it. So, well, how do we do this? Palms up, feet flat, spine straight, preferably so that you're not sitting against your spine, so your spine is open behind there. Now, when I first started to do this technique, I didn't have the energy to sit up. I had to lay down to do this. But if you can sit up, do. And what do you do now? You're in a quiet room, like we're in a quiet room so that nobody's bothering us, right? Don't have any music on, don't have the phone working, don't have anything, distractions or interference. Now, you're going to give away your burdens. Well, what's your burden? I don't know. Somebody gave you a diagnosis. That's a burden. You had a problem with your daughter, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister. That's a burden. You had an argument with your fiance, your husband. That's a burden. You're worried about money. That's a burden. You're worried about tomorrow, tonight, whatever. If it isn't from love, it's a burden. Give it away. You're worried about the government. You're worried about this. You're worried about that. Give it away. Who do you give it away to? Well, with Bruno, he said, give me your burdens. What does that mean, give me your burdens? Well, do you know what they are? Can you identify them and say, gladly, I give them to you, Mr. Friend Bruno? I don't know you, but I'm going to give this to you. Okay, let me show you a picture. That's a happy picture of Bruno. Okay? Each one of his photographs has a different energy to it. This one was smiling. The divine light was coming through. I have one back here behind me. He's Mr. Serious. I literally throw any concerns to him. I pull them out of myself, throw them to his photograph. So every member of the Circle of Friends has this Bruno poster, or Bruno, it's a 4x6, and they have them in their homes. And when Assisi, the city of Assisi in Italy, had an earthquake, The only people that didn't have damage in their homes were Bruno friends in Assisi. The community leader had a lot of Bruno pictures in her house. The house next to her on either side both collapsed. Her house had nothing more than a teacup that got damaged. As a result of that, 2,000 members, 2,000 people joined and became members in the circle of friends. Okay. The biggest thing about learning how to do this is doing it in group settings is much more powerful than doing it personally. But my own helps and healing has occurred by myself. I was in an MRI machine doing this when the healing occurred. Okay? So how do we do it? We give away our birds, whatever they are. Give it to Bruno. Can you give it away to Jesus? Sure. You don't believe in Bruno yet? Give it to Jesus. Give it away. All right? Just as long as you don't hold on to it. Write it down. Address it to God, Jesus, Bruno, whoever. Address it to heaven. Put it in the Bible. Put it under a Bruno picture. Just don't keep it. And now you start with, I now ask God to send me down the Heilstrom. You want to say that? You want to say it out loud?
Yes. I now ask God to send me down the Heilstrom.
And I ask Bruno Gruning, my friend, to connect me to God's Heilstrom.
And I ask Bruno Gruni, my friend, to connect me to God's Heilstrom.
Now, you can shorten it later. Just say, hey, Bruno, I'll give it to you. You take it away. I ask God and Bruno for a complete healing and rejuvenation.
I ask God and Bruno for a complete healing and rejuvenation.
I ask God and Bruno for divine protection.
I ask God and Bruno for divine protection,
Divine guidance and direction.
divine guidance and direction,
Divine order.
divine order
For my body.
for my body,
My affairs.
my affairs,
My life.
my life,
And my mind.
and my mind.
I say thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
And thank you, Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno.
Now, I talk about in the book, the German friends won't teach you that. They just say, be open to it. I'm an American. I'm a doctor. I'm like, I don't know what that means. What do you mean, be open to the Heilstrom? I don't know. All I know is this for me works, and I got this from Swiss friends, and that's how they did it. And I just copied them. Worked for me. I'm an analytical. I'm a type A plus. This works for me. I figured a lot of Americans would come from our head, not from our heart. This is a good way to practice it. But the German friends, they're going to say, this, don't listen to that. I'm telling you, do what works for you. This works for me, so I'm sharing this for you. And all my patients and clients, I share this one for them so they have something to hang their hat on. So what do you do now? You sit comfortably. You're listening to some music. And unlike meditation, which is done quietly, Einstellen is an action step, a verb. And now you're going to ask for whatever you need, want, and desire in your life. So you've asked God to send down the Heilstrom. You asked Bruno Gruning to connect you to God's Heilstrom. All the other sentences I told you about. And then ask. So, Whitney, what do you want? God's listening. What do you want? Dear God, dear Bruno, I need, want, and desire the following. And you just...
Dear God, dear Bruno, I need more love in my life. I want to experience more continuous joy in my life. I want more money so I can continue to do the things and teach in the ways that I love. And I want more inner peace day to day, flow and grace in my life.
And then when you're done, you say, thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno.
And you can also, once you do this twice a day, at least 10 to 15 minutes twice a day. If you can't do this twice a day, don't bother, because doing it once a day doesn't work. You need to do it at least twice a day, preferably before 8 o'clock or after 8:30. They said low tide of energy is about 8 o'clock morning and night. So do it. Just don't do it for 15 minutes between 8 and 8:15. I give it an extra 15 minutes. I do it on either side before 8 o'clock or after 8:30. Do this. You can do it at home. You can You can learn to do this in the car driving, but if you're really feeling like la la la, it's kind of hard to focus on driving. So I pull over and stop if I need to do it. Or I'll ask, hey, Bruno, I pray for that guy that I just passed. His car's broken down. I asked for help for that person, or that person looks homeless. They need help. Please, Bruno. But you can do Einstein anywhere. And yes, you can do it for less if you only have, but you got to be really intense and real focused if you're going to do it less than 10 minutes. But you do it twice a day. First part of the day, you do it for yourself, your family that you love, but especially for yourself. I used to do this every morning with my mom and the dog, and we would just do it for ourselves. I actually did it 3 times a day. About 6 hours later, I do it for my family, those here and on the other side. And at nighttime, at 9 o'clock at night, I would do it again for other people, my neighbors, those people that are on the SOS list, most in needs list, people have addictions of different kinds. I would do it for anybody that I can think of. That person asked for prayer. I always ask somebody, is it okay if I pray for you? Of course, I do it this way through Einstein. So now you can use this technique twice a day. The other thing is, you live up in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
I would like very much for you to connect with a lady by the name of Esther Wright.
Okay.
Esther, and I'll give you her number after we cut off, but Esther Wright is the community leader in Laguna Woods.
Perfect.
And she will give you an official introduction to the teachings of Bruno Gröning. She'll give you a photograph of Bruno. She'll give you a little CD of Bruno, and she'll give you a little booklet of Bruno. And then she'll invite you to come and do a community hour. It's called a community hour, but it's actually 2 hours. And you will learn about the teachings of Bruno Gröning. You'll do Einstein, and you will ask for different helps and healings for yourself and those that you love. And it becomes a regular routine every 3 weeks. Why? Because you need to do it in a larger group setting to clear out all the negative energy you've collected over the next, the 3 weeks. And doing it in a large group setting helps you clear this out. Well, where can you find out about Bruno Gröning? www.bruno, B-R-U-N-O, Gröning, Groening.org, O-R-G. You can read about Bruno's life. And is there a Bruno group near you who's ever watching? I just know that you're in Orange County, California, so there is a group there.
Yes.
And her group is one of the largest groups in the United States and on the West Coast.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, so I will give you her name and number, and you will connect with her. For me, my book is There Are No Lines in Heaven. It comes from There Are No Lines in Heaven when you reach the pearly gates. No Christians in the center, Jews to the left, Muslims to the right, for we are all children of God and we're all welcome. And the angel went on to laugh after he told me this little poem and prose about that we're all welcome in heaven. That's where the book comes from. There's a website to that. People can connect to me. I believe you said you'll put my contact information down below, but for those people that want to find me, I'm on the web. I have a Facebook account. I don't have my face on the Facebook account. You have the book, which you showed. If you can pick that up and show people again, that's what the book looks like. And that's what you'll see on Facebook. You're in a divine path when things start to happen without you even knowing about it. I was told that I had to, that's why they sent me back. I had to learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people. And that this technique was Einstein. So that's part of what I do for the rest of my life, is teaching Einstein. And in doing so, people have the option to join the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends. You don't have to join the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends. Some people don't like organizations like that, but you should learn how to do Einstein. If you're in another part of the country, you'll go on the website. You'll say, I'd like to understand how this works, and is there a group near me so I can work with them? Yeah, and they'll give you the name and address of a person to connect with. Can you do it online? Yes, since COVID, we've done a lot of people online. There's every Saturday morning, the German mentors who assist the West Coast of the United States, they are the Einhausers. They have what's called an IGR, an internet group where they go on, and there can be as many as 2,500 people on. Usually somewhere between 200 and 800 are on, but you can learn to do Einstein online. You're in a remote area. There's a lady in Paducah, Kentucky, that contacted me and said, "Is there anybody close by?" Well, the closest person was about 2.5 hours away in Cincinnati, and so she needed to do it remotely online. There are groups all over the place. Poland, Germany, of course, because that's where this started. Even Russia, during everything, Russia and the Ukraine, there are friends on both sides of the coin doing Einstein. Palestinians, Israelis, Taipei, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China all have friends. You can't stop it. Bruno said, once you learn this, you can't stop it. Healing will happen simultaneously and spontaneously, no matter what. No matter what evil tries to do, it can't stop it because this is divine. It'll help the earth. It'll help each of us. It'll help nature in general. So it's available for that. And I think I told you, Whitney, that the book has been asked to be made into a movie.
Yes.
And this Sunday, I'm being interviewed by a producer who makes documentary films about people with near death experiences and helps and heals people. And she asked, would I be interested in having a documentary film made about this story? Because even Alexander, who was a doctor, a neurologist who had a near death experience, is worldwide known about that. Even he, when I spoke to him through his website. He said, "Wow, you ended up in the morgue? It's not a common thing. I only know of
Hmm.
one other person who ended up in the morgue, and I tell that story. And she also became a healer. And we ended up the same way. We died 3 days after high school graduation, killed in automobile accidents, and we came back with unique gifts. So,
That's pretty wild that it was the same, that timing.
yeah, I'm
Very
like,
interesting timing.
and they use the term pods on the other side. You come down in pods, you go up in pods. You're going to learn the same lesson. And in this case, I was told never interfere with another person who's had a near death experience. But I had never met somebody like myself who's had a near death and ended up in the morgue.
Yeah.
So, and we both had two near death experiences. Uh, what people will learn from this varies by what they take away from it. Are they open to it? First, if they're not open to it, they're probably never going to see this. But if they're open to it, about 30% of the world is open to this understanding. The target market of where I wrote the book for and the movie is going to be for is about 25 to 50 million people who are open to things you learn from the other side. Heaven is real. There's a movie made about it, about the little boy that died. There was one that came out just a few months ago, Death, the angel's viewpoint, how doctors were beginning to experience this. There's something called a shared death experience where doctors are experiencing a person crossing over or a window's opening up or a door while they're having surgery and the doctor's there and say see things, or a patient comes back after the surgery, after their heart stopped, and tells them everything that happened in the surgical suite or in the surgical suite next door. That there's no way they would know how to do that. It's called a veridical near-death experience. This is real. It's been going on for centuries, eons. Greeks wrote about it. Mesopotamians wrote about it. The French wrote about it. It is a gift. Now, people say, well, how can I have one of those? You can't. It has to be pre programmed before you come to Earth. You just can't have it. My suggestion is once you get back to heaven, if you haven't had one in this life, request one. You'll be given an option. You'll take the near death experience version. There's nothing like it. I believe if everybody had a near death experience, the world would be a completely different. Well, it would be completely different. People would stop hating each other. They would love one another. They'd start to realize who they really are and who's pushing their buttons, their ego and their pain buddy. And their priority wouldn't be about how much money I'm going to make. It would be about compassion, love, caring, forgiveness. That's the messianic beings' teachings. The Antichrist is everything opposite. Chaos, confusion, hatred. That's the Antichrist. So which one do you want to work with?
I'm wondering, because of your experiences, what your thoughts are on synchronicities.
There's no such thing as a synchronicity or a coincidence. Why? Because everything's supposed to happen. Have you ever wondered what deja vu really is? I know what it is. You see, on the other side, you are shown three different options to come into this life. I'll call them videos, divine videos. So in this life, after you've chosen the option, and you come across these synchronicities, these coincidences, and you say, this feels very familiar. I've been here before. This deja vu, you're just remembering a clip or snippet from the other side of what you were shown of possibilities that occurs here. And what this tells me or tells you is that you are on the right path. That synchronicity is supposed to occur. And when you recognize it, you know that you're going the right way. That's a synchronicity, a deja vu. There is no such thing as coincidence. Everything will keep you on the right path. Except when you get crazy, you don't stay calm, and you forget why you're here. And unfortunately, 70% of the world can't wake up if they wanted to. They're not built, their human design is not built that way. They can't wake up, not part of who they are. But 30% can. So God manufactured us up in the divine heavenly car plant, only it's bodies, and we're going to experience. So those that can wake up, they should. In reality, only 2% of the 30% will actually wake up. And the others will say, well, I'm awake. No, you're not awake if you're mentioning that, because you're realizing you become more calm, you're more aware, and you stop playing the game. You're not in the parade. You're not watching the parade. You're observing all of the other people watching and being in the parade. You're now stepping out and not getting involved. You're just the silent observer. And it makes a difference. You don't need a near-death experience or two to make you do that. But death is the ultimate learning experience, and you'll realize that love is the answer to everything. And you're really here to master, endure, persevere, and overcome. You may be here to struggle, but you're not here to suffer. You must do this divine connection, whatever you want to do, every day, at least twice a day, to keep your batteries charged. You must eat well, charge your batteries. Once you start to charge your batteries, you don't need to eat as much. You're not as hungry. And then things heal, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. And then I threw a lot of stuff else in the book you already read, and you know, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's no one direct path to God. I just share with people my favorite one because it worked for me. Now, is everybody going to be open to that? No. Pick and choose the path. That's why I gave you the 10 best things. I gave 12 modules in there, but the 10 best things that I saw that worked, that didn't need money, ego, or greed, that you could be done easily, simply, and they exist right now. And it'll make your life much more joyous. And they'll smile just like you.
Can I ask you one last question to close out this episode?
Sure. What you want?
How can someone create a little bit more magic in their life every day?
Einstein is the first thing. Ask God for help to create more magic in their life. Second, always come from your heart and love for everything. Even if somebody's yelling and screaming at you, it's not the easiest thing. That magic, you want to create magic, you want to have a partner, ask God for that. You want a partner in your life, ask. I don't know why somebody would be having a hard time with you. You're physically beautiful on the outside, you're physically beautiful on the inside. You come from your heart, you're caring. You have food that you make, and that's why they call you chef, because you're making it with love. You just have to find somebody who's on the same path as you. How can you do that? Let the big guy do it. God wants to be involved in your life in every aspect of it every day. Make that opportunity available. participate with God every day. When you bring God into life, everything becomes miraculous. Everything is magical, and it will just blow your mind. So, what do you want? Write it down. I wrote down everything I wanted and everything I didn't want. All right, and put it in there. And said, "Dear God, dear Bruno, this is what I want." So that's my number one way of making life more magical. Now, one of the most unusual things, uh, I had 42 girlfriends. I mean, I went from one girlfriend to the next girlfriend to the next girlfriend. And it was like, hey, all right. She irritated me. I irritated her. We went our own ways. But when I started to do the help and healing for other people, I suddenly didn't need that. I was done. I didn't have that urge to have that other person in my life. I'm more open to have the dog, the bird, the cat, whatever. And I get a high off of it that I can't explain when the hailstorm comes through me into
Yeah.
another person for their healing. It's a rush better than sex. I can't explain it any other way. I mean, the word sex. Oh my gosh, he's talking about sex, and he's a spiritual person. But now I understand why so many spiritual healers just don't have that desire anymore.
Mhm.
Not because their testosterone level is low or whatever hormone is low. No, you're now refocusing your energy so that the energy of God comes through you to help another person, and you don't have that direct desire. Now, does that mean that it'll affect you? No. In your life, you want to have that. But for me to focus, one of the things that distracted me was all of these emotional ups and downs from girlfriend to girlfriend to girlfriend. You know, it's like you're picking up their energy, not me. Remember, I told you I kept picking up other people's energy. Most of the energy that was attached to me wasn't mine, old girlfriends. And I talk about that in sex and healing. Sex and healing is a good thing. It is a good thing with the right person, not 42. Uh, you ask God for that divine connection to that right person. And my little dog Lucky, he gave love instantaneously. He missed my mom when she passed away. And I'll end on that story because he's now with my sister. Dogs and cats, they give love, and it's just they don't have to ask, they give it, and they're here to help us. My mom had two prayer requests before she died. Her anniversary was the 22nd of December. She said, when it comes time to go home, I want to make sure that my family's all around and I can die at home, not in the hospital. So last year, on the 22nd, was the fifth night of Hanukkah, Kislev, and 3 days before Christmas. So the whole family was over the house wishing everybody. She was getting very tired. She knew it wasn't long. My sister kept saying, "You got to go to the doctor. There's something terribly wrong." Well, the next day, the day she died, she was due to go to the doctor. But before she went to bed that night at 10:30, we did a prayer for a dozen people. And she grabbed my hand and she gave it a kiss and she said, "Remember, son, I love you." When I woke up to find her, her heart pacemaker had stopped at 12:36 a.m. I was in such a deep sleep, I couldn't have gotten up to call the emergency. I slept right through it. Well, she wanted to die at home. Her soul came back to me and said, "Why aren't you there? Why didn't you call the emergency?" I said, "Mom, your prayer request was you die at home. If you had gone in the emergency room in the ambulance, you would have died there, and nobody could have said goodbye." So I found her frozen in time. She normally slept to the left. I had a chair there so she didn't fall over. I found her frozen in rigor mortis with her hands reaching out and her lips pursed. My father said he would come back and get her when it was time for her to go home. And lo and behold, that's what she looked like. She had leaned to the right as though my father had laid in the bed, went to give him a hug and a kiss, and she was gone. Now, verification wasn't an easy day for me. My neighbor, Brian, is a sheriff. He's a volunteer sheriff. And I had to call him to get the coroner. The coroner had to come. Mom was literally frozen in space. He said, I never believed a word you ever said. He said, I thought your stories were full of shit. Those were his words, right? Till the next morning. That night after Mom died, he looked up and talked to God, said, Dear God, dear Jesus, because he's very Christian. He said, I want to say one more goodbye to Hinda, because Mom and he were very close. And he, as a matter of fact, he had come over to the house just a few weeks before, and they'd taken pictures with him in his uniform. And Mom was very proud of him, like a son, because we're about the same age. So they were close, and we took care of their dogs, and they took care of Lucky. He knocks on my door at 7 a.m. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I said, I know you're a believer. You believe in Jesus. He said, no. I believe in all the stories you told me. He said, I did a prayer and asked, and I saw a light come down from the sky. And when the light hit the ground, this orb opened up, and there were your mother and father looking 20 years younger and waving to me saying, thank you, Brian. Bye-bye. Freaked him out so much, the orb closed. They went up into the sky, where he ran inside thinking my mom and dad were going to take him home too. Since he had his own pacemaker, he took his heart medication because he thought he was having a heart attack. Came out going, no, I must have been hallucinating. And he said, no. He asked the neighbor what he saw. The neighbor, Bob, used to live across the street from my mom. And his mother died on December 22nd, 2 years before. And they were best friends. And he said, I didn't recognize who you were talking to because their backs were towards me, but I saw a man and a woman, and a light flashed, and they vanished. They disappeared. He said, I was going to ask you, what was that about? And there was my verification that Dad had come to take my mom home. 3 days after my mom died, she came back and woke me up. No more grieving, no more guilt. Gotta go now. 3 o'clock in the morning. So loud that the dog came running in looking for Grandma. Took away my guilt, any grief, gone. Didn't have any guilt or grief, gone. It was my present. Dad gave me a present wonderful. 3 days afterwards, gave me a sense of humor. Mom took away all grief. And
those are beautiful gifts, beautiful gifts.
And she knew what was going to happen. She knew what happened when she couldn't stop grieving for my dad and how much that hurt her. And so my gift from my mom was that. Now, my rabbi said to me the day of her memorial service, it's okay to grieve because Jewish people are supposed to grieve for 11 months. And then you're supposed to go back to life. But I said, Rabbi, I don't need to grieve. My mom gave me a gift. She took it away from me. If you want it, gladly give it to you. But I don't want it, and I don't need it. And he looked at me bewildered. No, you don't need grief. Only this was the gift Mom gave me. Now, you can use your Bach flower remedy, start Bethlehem. It'll help. But grief is one of the most harmful, negative energies that can hurt the body besides hate. And so that was Mom's story. I wrote about it in the book. I think you read it. It's in chapter 1. My dad, my mom's story, and how love continues beyond time and space. Now, Mom came back to me a couple months ago and said, when it's your turn to return home, as in heaven, don't look for me up here. I won't be here. In other words, she's going to be back here. So Dad's already come back. I don't know where he is. Mom's going to come back. And I just know that when my time is to return to home, because on the day of your birth, you're giving your return ticket. Most people don't know that. Most near-deathers, we know that, what that time is going to be. Although they didn't give me the exact moment in time because they said I would be worried and focused on that, not helping people up until that time. Yeah. But yeah, for the most of us near-deathers, we know our return ticket day. We know what it is. And we also know that means that we'll be done with our mission and purpose in life. And we'll get to go home, get debriefed, rest for a little bit, then jump into the next body and start the whole process of the game of life all over again. So hopefully today was a wonderful experience for you and the audience watching this. And know that I love to help people, because that was the last thing that they had said to me. When most people are retiring, you are going back to work doing something you least expect. That's number one, become an author. Number two, being a motivational speaker. Number three, being a helper and a healer. Although God's doing the healing through me, I'm not the one. And helping people have miraculous healing, doing the one thing, learning a simple technique to heal themselves, and I will share that with other people. And I'll continue to do that as long as God says I'm supposed to be on planet Earth. With that, thank you for listening today. Thank you for having me on, Whitney. You're having a wonderful mission in your own purposes in helping other people connect with unique gifts. The movie, when will it be out? I don't know. Like I said, this Sunday I have an interview. We'll find out. It'll be broken up into two sections. One will be a training and teaching. That'll be filmed up in Cascade Locks, Oregon. And then the other one will be filmed in Studio City, God willing, if it all is agreed to. And my producer and director there, well, they're going to take the front part of the book, the stories about the near-death experience, the documentary part. So it's been a pleasure. Love you. You're
So
now
grateful to have connected with you. Much, much love to you.
Much love to you too, and to the audience watching this. And please let me know when this is going to air so that I can get a link to it, and then I can put that on my website as well. And if there's anything else, when we're done and you remind me, I'm going to give you Esther Wright's information. Goodbye. Love you.